This content is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice. The information provided is not guaranteed to be accurate or complete. Always conduct your own research before making any financial decision. Hello, legends. Today is the big day. We do have Fed interest rate decision, FOMC economic projections, and Fed press conference at 11 p.m. UAE time. That is +4 UTC. Make sure to trade accordingly throughout the news event because we will have some volatility going on. Today we're discussing the higher time frame 4-hourly downtrend. Is this a bear flag we're going to break down, or is there a chance for the bulls here with multiple 1-2s, and we are going to start popping out here to the upside in the next coming days? For that, we'll be zooming in on the 1-hourly time frame to figure out this uptrend momentum, even the 15-minute, to discuss the pattern here that has been formed throughout the last few days, the levels of interest that I see, big resistance and also big support to take a trading decision looking at the confluence, guys. Before we move forward, guys, remember that you do have some great deals down below, great perks here using the links for Bluffing, one of the best centralized platforms out there for trading, guys. That is the first link down below, okay, where you can get some great deals. And if you do not want to trade in a centralized platform, you got the decentralized platform Velto, guys. Super easy to use. You just connect your wallet. You have multiple options and they have very competitive fees, very, very low fees, guys. And you have full custody of your funds, no third party, no middleman, okay? Check out the link down below, guys, for the official website here to use Velto. Let's dive in right away through the 4-hourly time frame. We're going to keep it very fast and simple. Obviously, the bearish case scenario, the most attractive one is this one right over here, where we basically just forming an impulsive move to the downside, which we have multiple 1-2s from all-time high, the bigger move down, which is this one right over here that happened throughout the second, third week of November. And now this very, very choppy, bearish flag looking kind of momentum, which you might believe looks very bearish. And it's just going to end up breaking down in the next coming days to get below $80,000. There is bullish scenarios, of course, that we are going to be discussing. This is why it has been attractive to be looking for long positions throughout the last week. We talked about long position here, just in case this was a 3-wave structure. Long position also a few days ago at this low to look for that reversal bounce. This bounce actually came all the way up to hit above $94,000 in the last 24 hours as we were discussing the main scenario, as we were getting the information to form a triangle here throughout the last few days in a sideways WXY. It did get squeezed. It wasn't too symmetrical, but we ended up forming that triangle here in this range, which turned out getting that breakout to the upside, getting above $94,000. So let's discuss, okay, this scenario. Your invalidation for this is the $97,000, okay, just because your wave 4 cannot hit the golden pocket. If it does, then you're not looking at an impulsive move, the creation of an impulse. Eventually, if you were to form a lower high below $97,000, then we could be looking at a couple of 4-5s developing throughout the next coming weeks, okay? Now, the bullish case scenario is that you have a finished ABC. Now, the only way to fit in here a solid ABC movement is from all-time high, looking at this as an impulsive move, very solid impulsive move, looking at the spot exchanges. And all of this range would have to be some kind of a sideways WXY or a running flat, because you cannot fit a solid impulsive move throughout this momentum. Now, we do have a solid impulsive move from this pivot right over here. So that is looking very interesting. For this to be a finished 3-wave structure, we would have to be developing some kind of multiple 1-2s in this zone, which is very much a possibility. And this is why we're going to break down the 1-hourly time frame. What scenarios do we have? Well, we do have the bullish case, this one right over here, which is a multiple 1-2 setup. There is another multiple 1-2 setup, which is very much available, that will be explained after this one. You have the impulsive move here in a 5-wave structure with an extended wave 1, or, there's many ways of counting an impulsive move in this zone. Your 3-wave structure down, very easy, simple for your first wave 2, and then this very solid impulse, very solid 5-wave structure, and now your complex WXY, okay, where you have your wave W, your flat and X, and your triangle in your wave Y, which we were discussing throughout the previous days on one of the general scenarios that could develop here before heading above $94,000. Now, looking at this scenario, there are a few things on the lower time frame that I do not like very, very much, okay? Looking at the 15-minute, if we are finishing this triangle right over here, okay, in that running triangle, okay, in that WXY, then the low should be right over here. This higher low should be the low in that E wave, okay, to finish the triangle. Now, if we do count this as your first wave 1, wave 2, this your wave 3, we didn't get a stop and a wave 4 and 5 here, unfortunately, which that would have been pretty much the ideal scenario for me to look for short positions, looking to short that 5th wave here to the downside, and we did not get that. Now, on the 5-minute time frame, it is true that your wave 4 is getting a little bit long in time compared to your wave 2. It's already 5-6 times longer than your wave 2, which is slightly decreasing the probabilities that this is going to be a wave 4. However, it is not invalidated, okay? We could still have that 5-wave move to the upside to complete a 5-wave structure here, all right, looking at the 15-minute. However, the time is extending a little bit here. You can see your wave 2 is very, very small. So it's not looking great based on time. However, time just decreases the probability and structure comes first eventually. And you can see that the golden pocket, which would be your hard invalidation for your wave 4, has not been hit. And we are just trading here above the 50% Fibonacci from this pivot low to the pivot high. So a wave 4 here is still possible. However, I'm not interested in doing anything here, either longs or shorts. I would want to see that push to the upside, which is going to be shown here right away with the opportunity scenarios. We need to see a movement to the upside in some kind of a 5-wave structure. This could be stacked multiple 1-2s where you suddenly just get a pop to the upside with high volume, and then the 4-5 scenario getting above $95,000 potentially is going to be the area where I'll be very interested. We do have a weekly naked point of control, which eventually is a very, very strong resistance level. And we do have the anchored VWAP, which was almost tapped here yesterday with that rally. Anchored VWAP will be coming in, of course, just above this local high. So if we do form a 5-wave structure here, already the 5th wave getting into the highs, this could be an interesting double top scenario, which I would be looking for the short position. If you suddenly get a massive blast off increasing volume, eventually we want to see that sideways 4th wave, 5th wave coming into the weekly naked point of control, where I would be interested in looking for shorts. But we need to go literally looking at the 5-15 minute time frame to really analyze this momentum, okay? Because, yeah, the short could be a double top. The short could be at 95.7K, hitting the weekly naked point of control. It is crucial to actually look for that 5-wave move to the upside, have increasing volume in the middle, and then your sideways momentum in your 4th wave to then look for short positions. That's what I'm going to do, okay, for that 5th wave on the rejection, either at double top or either at the weekly naked point of control. If we do get increasing volume to the upside and we do not get any kind of a stop in a 4th wave and a 5th wave, then I'm not interested in doing anything, okay? Also, taking a look at the other scenarios, guys, that I am very much interested in, looking at the other bullish case, right? We've got the multiple 1-2s, preferably eventually we would want to see that 5th wave finished, and I will be looking for shorts depending on the correction. If we do get this scenario, then I would be interested in either adding to existing longs or actually getting into a new long position if we can detect this as a corrective structure. Of course, there's a lot of information still here to be had to take that decision. But it's very much possible. If that were to be the case, then what we would be looking at is another 1-2, 1-2, and another 1-2 here to just end up breaking out throughout the next coming days in that massive 3rd wave structure. I would see this as a potential third one to development, all right? However, it's not looking too great, right? We've got a big rejection. Timing is against us for this to be a wave 4 and another leg up in a wave 5. So, yeah, I mean, we need to get up there in the next coming hours. If that is not the case, then we're looking for lower prices and looking at the internal bearish case scenario, which still has a possibility. Now, we do have this scenario, which is the first wave 1 and 2, same as the other one. Then your first wave 1, also the same scenario. And then here, the possibility of a flat structure for your second wave 2. I know it might be looking confusing, but this could definitely be a scenario that could be developing in the next coming hours. Remember, I am not positioned in this area. I don't care what happens next. I just want new information to get to my levels and see the Elliott wave scenarios that I'm basically prepared for, right? So no new positions. I did not short here. I'm not looking for longs. I'm not in any position. I'm remaining patient to see higher probability scenarios. I understand that this movement to the downside here from the 4th of December can be labeled as a zigzag. And throughout this price action, there is a possibility here to count this as a zigzag, a wave of a flat, right? And then you have a flat here, developed a triangle. And then once the triangle finished, we have only a 3-wave structure. This is why I said we're missing that 4 and 5. So we could count this as a 3-wave structure in a zigzag, where we do have a 3-wave move up from your A wave, which is a flat triangle in wave X, and then a zigzag in your wave Y that gives you the potential for this to be a 3-wave structure. Now, if you have 3-wave down and 3-wave up, you have the possibility of forming a flat. And of course, the C wave needs to be a pretty aggressive 5-wave move to the downside. And that's the conclusion that I want to get into here, where I will be looking for some aggressive long positions. Of course, that comes with the second opportunity. We end up breaking down here throughout the next coming hours, potentially between today and tomorrow. We got your first potential impulse down. You're forming a corrective structure here. I'm not interested here, guys. I realize that this could be bullish or bearish. So, well, then what are you looking for? Well, as explained, I'm looking for that 5-wave move up here. I'm looking for shorts right over here at this zone above 95K to 96K, where we have weekly naked point of control anchored VWAP, and I need to detect that 5-wave structure. That's it, right? I'm not interested in doing anything here. I'm interested in that last leg up to see if this could be a 5-wave move to the upside. All right, so that is the level of shorts. The levels for longs, understanding that this could be a zigzag. This could be a 3-wave structure in a WXY, okay? And then I'm looking for the 5-wave down, very aggressive, right? People are going to start panicking. I told you it was a bear flag, right? We're going to break down. Well, I need to detect from this pivot high of yesterday some kind of a 5-wave structure. I want the middle wave most commonly to be a 3rd wave with high volume, and then obviously some kind of choppiness in this range, and then the last wave down, which has the potential to sweep the lows here below 87.7K. Now you can see they've got that trend line, higher low support trend line. What is interesting about this zone, I mean, this could be a running flat, maybe not claiming the low. Okay, it's very important to look at the internal waves here on the 15-minute time frame, right? Because you need to spot the 5th wave, okay, coming into some kind of support. It could be an SFP from this low, very possible. If you have the big wave down and a consolidation, and then the last move down, which is your 5th wave, that could be a good SFP if you can detect the 5th wave of the 5-wave move down of this potential ABC flat. However, the 3rd wave could be very aggressive, right? Maybe the price is moving down massively right here with high volume. You create that SFP on the 3rd wave, but then the 5th wave, actually gets a move down here, coming into incredible levels of support, okay, which would be some point of controls and a daily level that we do have here between 86.8K and also 85.9K. This zone is very interesting based on this consolidation, right? This range, little range that we have right there. We've got a few naked point of controls, daily levels, we can treat them as good levels of support to detect where that fifth wave could finish. But we need that 5-wave move to the downside, okay? So that's a little bit of the zones where I'm looking at for some opportunities. This could be one scenario as well. However, one thing that is slightly decreasing in probability for this to be a 1-2 and a 1-2 in a flat is that your second wave would be a little bit longer in time than your first wave 2, and that is never preferred. Your second 1-2, okay, you want them a little bit more shallow in time, okay, compared to your first 1 and 2, which for this scenario would be fine, okay? However, for this 1 and 2, right, you're forming a flat, you can see the timing from your first wave 2 to your second wave 2 is going to be extremely longer. So we're not liking that scenario too much. The bearish case, eventually we always need some bearish scenarios, is that you have a finished double zigzag, which I have to say I don't like it too much based on this movement to the upside. Okay, it would be nice to actually have a solid 5-wave structure. However, I need to take it into consideration where you do have a zigzag up, you'll have your zigzag to the downside in your wave X, then you have your A wave, 5-wave up, sideways WXY, and then this has been your quick push up in your wave C, okay? However, for me, it's not looking too great. This looks very 3-waver. I can't find a solid 5-wave move from here. Okay, it just doesn't look good for me. The most, the highest probability scenario here is a sideways WXY finishing in that triangle, and we have a problem here right there where you don't have a solid 5-wave structure to complete an A, B, and C. Right? I don't like this for a C wave. So we need more information basically, right? However, I understand that yes, maybe this could be a zigzag X and a zigzag up. We did claim the highs, which is the minimum target eventually for a zigzag. You just need to accept that it has the possibility to be a double zigzag, and this ends up, breaking down very aggressively. Of course, we would want to see that 5-wave down, and then I would be interested in looking for longs, either an SFP here on the 5th wave or coming down to the point of control levels here, naked point of controls. I would be interested in longs depending on the information that we get here. And if we break down very aggressively in a 5-wave structure, we kind of create that SFP and we form a very overlappy corrective structure here. It will be time to be very, very bearish, guys. This would be the moment that I would say, okay, guys, the double 1-2, forget about it, right? And we're going to break down very likely in a 3rd wave later on. But we need that information. We could be looking for new shorts later on, but as this price action doesn't exist yet, we need that price action to take into consideration, okay? So in a nutshell, where I'm looking for the opportunities here, guys, is literally at these areas. I need a 5-wave up, 5-wave down, looking at the 15-minute time frame. And basically, that is coming into confluence zones, okay? We've got weekly naked point of control above 95K, also with the anchored VWAP, which is slightly above this high. That becomes an interesting area if we can detect a 5-wave structure to look for shorts in between 95 and 96K zone, okay? That's the area where I'm interested in. And for longs, eventually, it's coming down to sweep up this low potentially. A running flat is possible. There is a daily and a naked point of control. Maybe this 5th wave ends up in this zone. That could be interesting for longs. We just need that 5th wave. And if we do get a more aggressive 5-wave structure to the downside, then I'll just have to be looking for lower prices here at this naked point of control zone and daily levels. Not much more, guys. Not interested in doing anything at the moment and just waiting for new information and the zones of interest where I will take the new decision. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you in the next one.